Hi, I'm Kristin Clark, and I'm here with Bobby Hood, and we are talking all things college today on College Planning Untangled, like we always do. And today, our topic is 5 tips for motivating your teen as they apply to college.
It's a great topic. I think sometimes people just forget until too late to, get started on college stuff. And then it turns into just big fights and it's a big emotional drag and nobody wants to do it. And, you know, so motivation is important.
It is important, and I think Bobby too for all the kiddos. They don't know where to start, so
Mhm.
it's hard to get motivated for something when you don't know how to do it. So
Mhm.
I think by just breaking this down for parents, and let's start thinking about what is going to motivate a teen to
Mhm.
start this process, right? So the first thing that we talked about is discussing their options.
Yeah.
And I have found that this can be a little bit of a controversial subject in some
Mhm.
homes,
Yes.
right? Because, I'll give my story about you give birth. And most times
Mhm.
people are like, they're 5 pounds, 6 ounces, and they're going to college.
Right.
And that's a lot of parents' mentality when they have a child that, that's just what they're going to do. And then fast forward 17, 16, 17, 18 years, and maybe that's not what's going to happen or
Mhm.
should happen, right? So we have several different options that I think that families need to discuss because the fact is only 39% of Americans have graduated from college.
Mhm.
Now, let's think about that. Those people that I described that had a baby and said they're going to college, they probably went to college, right?
Yep.
So the numbers in the bubbles are a little bit higher,
Right.
right? But the fact remains, not everybody goes to college.
Absolutely. And even if, well, first thing, if as a parent, your expectation is, your child's going to go to college. That's a good thing to reinforce and to lead by example and things like that. But you don't actually know until you think about the options. Like it is absolutely. I think we all know people who went to college and it wasn't right for them, and they shouldn't have been there, and then they end up not doing well. They end up transferring. They end up dropping out. They end up deciding to do something different, and that's just such a expenditure of time and energy and money when there's something else they needed to be doing. You
And
know,
not to mention a big stinking bummer, right?
absolutely, and it can really emotionally affect a student when that happens. And part of the thing is the answer very likely could be I'm going to go to college, but the key is asking the kid to think about here are your options. Why do you want to do this instead of that? Right? Because you're much more likely to be successful in college if you have thought about it and you have a reason to go other than mom and dad have said I'm going to go my whole life, but I don't know why I'm doing it. Right?
Right, and I'm checking the box.
Yeah.
Yep, that's the next thing I'm supposed to do, so I'm gonna check that box, and I guess we're going, and, let's
Mhm.
just start planning. Yeah, I love that this is our first one, Bobby, because I think it does a couple of other things too. I think it helps this child know they have options
Mhm.
that they may have never considered,
For
and
sure.
I think it also, opens up for the discussion to say, if they've been thinking, "Gosh, I know my family expects me to go to college, and I just don't know if that's my next step."
Mhm.
Think about the angst that goes on with that too, that you're expected to spend the next 4 years of your life doing, or 6, as we know,
Right.
doing something that you're not sure you wanna do. So I think just having the conversation
Mhm.
is important because if you do have a child that's questioning it, now it's their decision and you're along for the ride and you're guiding and you're having all the good discussions around it. So,
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people just don't realize, I have a close relative who's going to trade school right now and is going to be done in a couple of years and is going to be coming out making a whole lot more money than everybody else that he is his age, and is going to have great, pension plans and, like job security and all that. So,
and he's getting a
once you see
2 year,
that, yeah.
yeah. He's getting a 2-year jump start on salary. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
there's absolutely a lot of upside, Bobby, to a lot of these things we're talking about. So let's at least take people through what are the different options that are out there. So
Sure.
they're considering all of them, right? You obviously have college and university.
Mhm.
Okay. Community college is an easy, one that people think about.
Yep.
You brought up trade and tech schools.
Mhm.
That's a great option. Apprenticeships. When you're talking about going into the trades, a lot of times it's just an apprenticeship to be a plumber or, an electrician or some of these things.
Mhm.
We've talked about in the past taking a gap year,
Sure.
and I know on that
Yeah, a
parents
lot of
sometimes.
students can really, do that. Yeah, you can really benefit from, if you're not ready, maybe you just need a year where you do something else, and then start. And there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that at all.
And I know parents always worry about that because I always hear them say, I'm afraid that they just won't go back to school. Well, the reality is maybe that's a good thing. Maybe,
Right.
that they're considering this their options, right? And maybe they didn't want to go to a university in the first place. But the other thing is, and I'm a fact girl, I like my facts. Kids that have taken the gap year and then gone to college, they actually get better grades and they get out quicker. So don't look at it as a bad thing, right?
Mhm.
So, and then we have possibly a business coach. So let's say you've got a teenager. I know a teenager in town that he has a dog poop scooping business in high school, has 3 employees, has bought his own truck,
Mhm.
and done all kinds of really wonderful things, right? I look at that kid and I go, you know what? Does it make sense for him to continue that business, hire a business coach, and
Mhm.
that's his education,
Oh,
right?
wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So that's an option. And then, of course, we also have military. I mean, I think
Mhm.
that's always a great option for the kids that, want that type of experience.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, those are all options that, I mean, just having the conversation, I think, is what's important in saying, okay, why would you want to do this? What have you, what would be the difference? What would your life be like? And this is where you start envisioning, like what you might be doing in the future.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about the second
Mhm.
tip, and that is creating weekly meetings. And while we're doing this, Bobby, I'm going to type those 7
Oh,
options
nice.
into the chat. But you want to talk about the weekly meetings?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think we bring it up quite often, which is, what happens so often with, the college admissions process is you feel like you're behind, you haven't done anything, and then you nag your student to like work on your essays or whatever, or what have you done? And then it turns into this really negative experience where you feel like every conversation is angry and yelling, right? And if instead you plan in advance that there is this one time each week where we're going to sit down and just talk about whatever about college, talk about what we've done this week, talk about what we're going to do, pick things off the checklist and talk about them, right? If you do that once a week, then it's much less stressful. There's dedicated time for it. You're not just constantly nagging all the time. It's just a much healthier and more positive way. And I think then you can actually find yourself like having positive discussions and talking about things that you wouldn't have talked about because in a weekly meeting you'll actually just think of things to talk about.
You
That's all.
will. And so, you bring up a couple things, or a couple things came to my mind when you were saying that. The expectation is certain things are going to get done during that week,
Mhm.
right? So there's a deadline and there's consistency and all that good stuff for the kiddo. The other thing, and I had another thing.
Mhm.
Hold on. So the consistency, and it's much more casual, right? You're not going to talk about college for the rest of the week unless
Right.
the child brings it up. If they bring it up and they want to talk, by all means, jump in, discuss. But as a parent, I got to tell you, Bobby, this is the big point here. Don't be talking about college the rest of the week.
Yeah. Right. That's where you lose the motivation because you're exhausted. You feel like all we ever do is talk about this. It's so stressful. Yeah.
Yeah, stop already, mom and dad. Would you stop, right? Or grandma, or
Mhm.
Aunt Becky, or the lady going through the line at Tom Thumb. Stop it, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I
Yeah,
think
weekly meetings.
those weekly meetings are key. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And for parents, if you're listening in, if you're listening to us after this, you're listening to the recording, that those weekly meetings with your kid, it's absolutely a must have. Okay. So tip number 3, get additional help.
Mm.
Yeah. So let's talk about when we say additional help, what kind of additional help is out there when you're planning for college? And we'll start with high school counselors
Mm.
and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I mean, your high school counselor will at some point have you do some little something, but they're not going to have a whole lot of time to dedicate to you individually. But they're there. They have resources. They often have lots of books and things in their office. You can go in there and grab them, look through. You can search colleges, things like that.
And I think the key is when you're walking into your high school counselor, you kind of have to have a plan for the
Mhm.
meeting, right? And
Yeah.
so this is where I see sometimes this going a little bit astray, Bobby, in that I think kids are walking in with, I don't know what I'm doing.
Hmm.
And the college counselors, truthfully, the time, there's a time element here that,
Yeah.
they have, the latest stat I saw was like
300.
357
Yeah.
kids per counselor. So, I mean,
Yeah.
they have limited
Can't
time.
be done.
So, yeah. So if you do want some answers, I think you have to prep your kid to get out late during your weekly meetings to go in with a specific question,
Hmm.
and I think you're going to get the best results then from your high school counselors.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So then, of course, we have your college consultants to help with getting into college.
Sure. Yeah, I mean the full-time professional college admissions consultants, they can be very expensive. Uh if you want to use someone like that, you better be planning on signing up freshman or sophomore year at the latest, or maybe at the very beginning of junior year. Those people fill up. They take a certain number of students and they're full by fall of junior year. And it can be a great thing. But it's also a very intense process, and so I would not say it's for everybody, you know, uh, at all.
Yeah. And I look at that and definitely there are parents out there that are like, you know what? I don't know how to do this. So please,
Mhm.
take my kid and help them do that, which I totally appreciate. Right.
Yeah.
Um, and but to your point, there is definitely an extensive process that they're going to take you through because they're going to take you through every step,
Mhm.
and keep you moving along. So that's some help that you can get. You can reach out to Bobby for your SAT and ACT,
Mhm.
tutoring and to help you through that process.
Mhm.
Bobby, anything you want to add there?
Well, yeah, I mean, certainly, part of the process is deciding whether you're going to take the SAT and ACT, and then doing what you need to do to get the best score that represents you. And then also, a lot of tutors, including me, are also trained in college admissions consulting, and so I can answer questions about college admissions, and I also help students review essays every year, and so that is a way to get some help with the college admissions process without doing the extensive big long thing. Uh, and so I think that's part of the thing is that plus, someone to look at essays. I think everybody must always have someone who knows something about college admissions essays look at students' essays other than just the parents. Like, you absolutely have to. In fact, I don't even know that parents should even look at their kid's essay. I think a kid's more likely to write a better essay if they don't think their parents are going to
I
read it.
agree. And yeah, you said this, but I can't stress it enough. Parents, keep your hands off the essays. You're going to speak differently than your kiddo. And guess what? The college admissions people are going to know that.
Oh yeah,
And by the way, things have changed since you applied to college. So it's just best just to walk away.
yeah,
Yes. Yes. And then, we also talked about scholarships
yep,
and people that help with scholarships.
yeah, man. I mean, just figuring out the financial stuff and all those things. Yeah, like finding someone who knows and can help with that. That's really important.
Yep. And then financial coach.
Yeah.
And I think parents do not spend enough time here, not only for them to figure out what's the best way for me to pay for college,
Mhm.
whether that be saving since those kids are, 3 years old, taking out of retirement, taking out loans in your kids' names versus your names. Get somebody that knows how to do that and what's
Yeah.
right for you, because every family is going to be different there, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the last thing is, and this is kind of where I come in and play, Bobby, is I help students to understand why they're going to college. So I help them figure out a career plan and pick a college major that supports that. And as we've talked in the past, this is a little bit of a disruptor in that, I look at this as the first step of planning for college, because once you've figured that out, what path you're interested in, then the rest starts falling into place.
Absolutely. I think it's so important. My students that have worked with you like have come out saying that it really was, so important to helping them figure out what they might want to do with their life. And I can't think of anything more important to help increase the chance of success in college and of getting out in 4 years and all of those things, right? Like it's I think it is a key part of the process and kind of something that is relatively new and of such huge value. And so, yeah, I recommend all my students that they do that.
Yeah, Bobby, people are surprised to hear, like, I'm on the lookout for people that do what I do, because I like to work with them and go, what are you doing? How are you helping educate parents on this process? And I've found less than 10 people that do this work
Wow.
so far. It's a new idea. And I when parents hear me speak about it, they go, oh my gosh,
Mhm.
that makes logical sense.
Yeah, it makes so much sense once you think about it, but yeah, it's nobody thinks about it until it's suggested. Very
Right.
interesting.
Yeah, because it is new. And we're hoping to get this into the mainstream as well.
Yeah.
All right. Tip number 4.
Hmm.
Now we're into looking up colleges, your scholarships, your financing. So, now you sit down with your list of where do we want to go visit? What scholarships can you get as a student based on your grades, based on your life experiences, whatever those things are. And then, going ahead and looking up the different options for financing for college.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is what's so interesting is like if you've done the things we've talked about, figured out what sort of major you ought to have, figured out, thought about your options, thought about why you want to go to college, then now when you look up colleges, you have some idea of what it is you're looking for and what kind of colleges would make you happy. Because I think that's the thing is how most people start the process is I I figure I'll go to one of the 3 colleges that everybody I know goes to, and then you go look up their requirements and you start doing that, right? With just the assumption that you're going to the big state school in your state or whatever. And instead, it's like, okay, wait, do I want to go to college? Why do I want to go to college? What kind of major do I want in college? Okay, now let's look at what kinds of colleges would.
Yeah. And then you can go, and what scores do I need to get into those colleges? And, how much does it cost? And can we afford that? Right.
Absolutely.
So there is a cadence to this and a order that if you follow it, this gets a lot simpler to figure out. And talk about motivation, right? So I think about these kids and I'm like, okay, we get to that beginning of junior year and all of a sudden it's like, go figure it out. And they're like, I don't know what to do. So when you have an order to it, it makes a lot more sense to them. And talk about then being motivated to go, okay, let me jump in because I kind of understand the process. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And then the last one, and I love this one, Bobby. It is reinforce a sense of achievement. And I look at this and, the kids that we have going through school right now, and I know we blame a lot on COVID, but there's a lot more attached to this. There's social media. There's, just all the stuff that they've had to go through. I won't even say we put them through, but what they've had to go through. The kids right now are doubting themselves, I think, more than they ever have. And they're probably, in my mind, the most achieved kids, because they've been involved in all kinds of stuff. And I think because they've done so much that they're looking for the next thing. And I think for us as parents and as coaches and all the things that we do, to reinforce for them that, man, look at all you've already done,
Mm-hmm.
and really celebrate that a little bit and help them realize that, you know what, I'm recognizing this, I'm seeing you, I'm seeing what you've done,
Mm-hmm.
and give them that pat on the back. We so rarely get to do that, as, and maybe, well, I was going to say, maybe it's just me because I'm not like a super like huggy kissy, give kudos, but I think there are other people that are like that because I'm just seeing too many of these kids struggle. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, this is just like, it's so easy to be so focused on every step and everything that needs to be done that you need to also say, hey, we're going through this process of choosing a college and all that because you have achieved great things in high school. And now let's go see where those achievements that you have made, where those are going to lead you next, but really stopping and taking a breath and saying, hey, you've done great. And let's see where you will be happiest next, because students are, anxiety is a big issue everywhere today. And for our current teenagers as much as anywhere else.
Yes, no, I love that. And I think you said it really well, Bobby. And then, you know what, with that being said too, I'm going to go ahead and put our college planning timeline download so that people have that.
Absolutely. That timeline is just a checklist of what to do starting, freshman, sophomore year, just what you can do, and really can make this process much simpler and much less stressful.
All right. So that is in the chat as well.
Excellent.
All right. Yeah. You know what? I love this topic. I will probably go out and promote this a little bit just so that people do get to listen and chime in. And we'd love to hear your thoughts and comments. I don't know if you guys know this, but Bobby's a good debater, man. And we definitely have opinions on this stuff and would love to hear yours. So definitely chime in. And then we've got our websites that are scrolling across the bottom. Please feel free to reach out to either of us. We love to just help you no matter what the question is, and we can get you the right people if you need help outside of what we do.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, Bobby.
Absolutely. Talk to you next week.